We're up to Siman Chafei. We're starting Hilchos Tefillin. So the Mechaber says, "Achar shalavish talis." After you wear the talis, yaniach tefillin. Then you put on tefillin. The order is talis and then tefillin. Shemailin v'kodesh, because mailin v'kodesh. Now, what's interesting about this next little bit from the Mechaber is that the Mechaber feels that if you were to poigim, I'll explain what that means in a moment. But if you were to interact with the tefillin first, you would have to put on the tefillin before the talis. Now, I'll explain why you never see this, possibly. So the Mechaber says, if you have a talis bag that has the tefillin in it, like most people have, you have to make sure that the order of the bag is in the bottom and the end of the bag is the tefillin, with the talis covering it. That way, when you stick your hand in, you're touching the talis first. Why? Says the Mechaber, Shelo yifke behem tchila, because if the tefillin are on top, and then you touch the tefillin first, yitzdarech lahanicham koydem, you'd have to put on the tefillin first. And because the whole inyan of Mailin v'kodesh is overridden by ein mavir ala mitzvahs. So if you actually touch the tefillin bag first, you would have to put on the talis first. The tefillin first, and then the talis. Now, okay, we'll get to the Ramah in a second. Now, I'll tell you a bigger chiddush. The chiddush of the Mishnah Berurah, we'll see it inside. The Magen Avraham holds, the Mishnah Berurah does not quote the Magen Avraham over here, he quotes in the Berurah Yomi. The sheet of the Magen Avraham is that you only have to put on the tefillin first, according to the Mechaber, if you actually touch the tefillin themselves. Meaning, you reached in, you touch the box, or but if, let's say, you merely pulled the bag aside and touch, you could then put on the talis first. The Mishnah Berurah does not hold that way. Not only does the Mishnah Berurah not hold that way, the Mishnah Berurah holds that even if you don't touch the tefillin first, but the tefillin are in closer, you wouldn't be able to move your arm around it. More than this, as we'll see in a moment, the Mishnah Berurah shita is that if you have to walk through the kitchen to get to the dining room, and in the kitchen there are tefillin, and in the dining room are the talis, you have to put on the tefillin first. Even if you don't, just because it's closer in proximity. So the Mishnah Berurah says, now first of all, the Mishnah Berurah does write in Beis, just Agav, he says that it's better to buy nicer tefillin than a nicer talis, and people are not so careful, and he says relying on borrowing tefillin is not a good eitzah, because they bring down in the bottom in this little star in the Sha'ar Tzion, because oftentimes when you borrow people's tefillin, you're not yaitza because it doesn't fit properly, and so you either wear it improper, or you actually try to fix it, which bothers the owner. So either way, it's not a good eitzah. It says in Mishnah Berurah, Shelo yifken gimel, afilu lo yechaz bam biyado. Not like the Magen Avraham. Even if you don't touch the tefillin, but they're closer in proximity. They have pictures. They have to have pictures of the tefillin closer. So it's closer, then it's a problem. Interesting. And you look at the Berurah Yomi in the middle of Shelo Yaniach, he adds a bigger chiddush. This is probably true even in shul, where you could argue it's embarrassing to put on tefillin before a talis in shul. It look ridiculous. But ein mavir ala mitzvahs, he says, according to some sheet, this is deraisa. When it's deraisa, we don't care about your feelings, right? Was it facts don't care about your feelings? Ben Shapiro's right, deraisa, but deraisa, yeah. So, okay, so let me ask you a question. Why is it that you never see anybody do this? I have a hard time believing that every person has their talis above the tefillin. So I believe the reason is like this. You could argue they just don't know the halachas. I don't want to go that route. I want to argue like this. You have the Magen Avraham who says that it's only a problem if you actually touch the tefillin, which it's very rare to touch the actual tefillin. Most likely you're dealing with the cases, the bags. The Shita of the Arizal is not like this. The Kaf HaChaim quotes the Arizal, that the Arizal said, no. And by the way, you learn more Arizal, and I don't learn Arizal myself, but you see Paiskim who quote the Arizal, like with Yaakov Hillel, is Isaac and these things, Yaakov Halayla. The more you learn from the Arizal, the more you realize that the order of things is incredibly important. And the Arizal holds that you do not put on the tefillin before the talis. You do not do that. Now, coupled with the fact you have the Arizal who's connected to Shulchan Aruch. I mean, according to the Arizal, if I were to pull out the box, and unravel it, put it down and take the talis, because al pi pnimius, whatever is going on, whatever you're trying to accomplish, you need to put on the talis first. Or makif, then or pnimi, whatever the lashon is. Now, normally, I wouldn't just go Arizal against the Shulchan Aruch, but you have the fact that it's embarrassing. You have the fact that it's the Arizal, and you have the fact that the Magen Avram says it only a problem if you actually touch the boxes, the actual. You put that all together. I think that's the reason why the Olam is not makbid like this at all. That's why, like I said, if you look in the Mishnah Berurah in Dalid, he says, "Im mispal bebeisai v'reitz laniach talus utfilin v'teich hacheder shalafanav munach hatfilin v'teich haderach munach hatalus arach laniach tefillin." Mamish, you can't even pass the room. You have to put the tefillin on first. Again, olay matzinu, and I think that the reason is because of the Arizal. Back to the Ramah. The Ramah says, "Miu im tefillin muzumanim liyado ve'ein lo tzitzis." Let's say you have a situation. I don't know, again, it's a very strange thing. You have a guy in shul where he doesn't have a talis. All he has is tefillin. Don't think that because this order is so particular that you normally put talis on tefillin. You only put talis on tefillin if you have both. Right? Tadir v'shene tadir, all these rules of Mailin v'kodesh, they only apply when you have both in front of you. If all I have are tefillin, then put the tefillin on. Okay, what are you going to do? And then, in a couple hours, you'll get your talis. Get your talis then. If you have no choice. This whole Indian is when you have both in front of you, there's a proper order. If you don't have both, okay, then at least put on tefillin. The Mechaber says in Beis, Misha hoizar betalis katan, yil bishenu v'yanich tefillin bebeso, v'yelech lavush betzitzis umuchter betefillin lebeis hakneses, l'sham yisatev betalis gadol. Okay, basically, this is a strange thing, but basically there's an Indian from the Zohar that you should go to shul already wearing talis and tefillin. So what a lot of people would do is they would put it on at home and walk to shul. Now, technically, the Shulchan Aruch's point is you could put on the tefillin without the talis. Why? Because you're not wearing both anyway. You're not interested in wearing them both right now. There's an Indian to enter the shul with talis and tefillin. So you have the tefillin and you're wearing tzitzis. That'll accomplish that. So technically, you could put on the tefillin with the talis katan, and then put the talis on when you get to shul. And it's not a problem of their lack of order, because there's only an order when you want to wear them both now. You're not interested in wearing them both now. You're just interested in having technically the check of talis and tefillin. So but it says the Ramah, but the minhag is to put on the talis and the tefillin and then walk to shul like that. The Mishnah Berurah does point out that if you're going through a place that's dangerous, or there's a place that smells to walk down the street, so what they would do is they wouldn't get dressed in shul at home and walk to shul. What they would do is they would, outside of the shul, there would be like a chutzner in front of the shul, probably even the hallway. Efsher the hallway is part of the Beis Knesset, is unclear, but they would do is that right outside the shul they would put the talis and tefillin and walk in like that. That's the Mekayim, the Indian of the Zohar. Okay, the Mechaber says in Gimel, Harosh hayimasader habrachis ad oite yisrael b'sefara, v'az yaminich tefillin u'mevarach oite yisrael b'sefara. The brachas hashachar in the morning, the Rosh would say them as they would go on, but he would get to Oite Yisrael b'Sefara, not say it, put on tefillin, and then say Oite Yisrael b'Sefara. B'Kitzer, the point of this Shulchan Aruch is to tell you that the Indian of Oite Yisrael b'Sefara, that we're surrounded with a crown, a hat, whatever, is the tefillin. Now it's Negeya. You see the Mishnah Berurah says, Kedei litin shevach v'yda brachazu gam al tefillin shenikar pe'er, because it's like a crown. Mavarach Oiter, if Mishnah Berurah says in Yigimel Ba'artzas Achayim, I think it's the Malbim, if I'm not mistaken, or the Archaim HaKadosh. I think it's the Malbim. Kasav, Loi Re'isi Shenoigen came, Rak Menich Tefillin Koidim Berchas HaShachar, Rayachar Kach, Kimu Fim Min Hagoi. Rak Re'isi, Medaklu Mashish Tefillin Sheyah B'Shal Roish, B'Shashim Mavarach Brachazu. I've never seen that. This is what I was saying. Yesha, because Neta Gabriel in Hilchos by Tisha B'Av and Bein HaMetzarim, in the end of the first volume, he says, Yesha Kasav She'ein Mavarach and Berchas Oite Yisrael B'Sefara B'Tisha B'Av B'Shachas Rak B'Mincha. Because if Oite Yisrael B'Sefara is so connected to Tefillin, then on Tisha B'Av morning when we don't wear Tefillin, some Sfardim, but Ashkenazim don't, so you make the bracha in the Mincha. Who is this? This is the Yavitz. This is the Yavitz and the Chazon Ish. Okay. It's the Chazon Ish, okay? But V'haminik She'Mavarchim B'Ragil B'Chol Yom, because as we'll see later on in maybe a few months, the Mechaber Shita is that you say these brachas even if you're not, and also, not only is there a shita that you say the brachas even when you're not mechuyev, but also the ikar bracha really is on the yarmulke, the hat, the yarmulke, whatever it is. It's also on the tefillin, but not having tefillin is not a reason not to say it. But that was the minhag of the Chazon Ish, was taka not to say it until mincha. So the Mechaber says in Dalet, Sarach shiyeh tefillin olav b'shas kriya shema tefillah, that you should wear. You have to make sure that you're wearing the tefillin by kriya shema tefillah. We had this yesterday because it's made eidish sheker ba'atzmai. Says the Mishnah Berurah Yomi that you should at least wear tefillin, even though you can wear tefillin all day, and it's a mitzvah technically every second. L'chol hapachas to have it for kriya shema tefillah. Shemona Esrei. And the Gemara says, we had this yesterday, that anyone who reads Shema without talus and tefillin is made a deshek ba'atzmai. Chas v'shalom pirshu ataisis, because you're saying kshartem la'ois, and you're not actually being kosher. Even though you be yotze kriya Shema, it's an aveira mitzad achar shemar alatz v'shin roitz l'kaima, because it looks like you're not interested. Zeh deshek shemed atzmai. Interesting. He says that the Seif Haredim says that if we're makbid, that when you say Shema, you have to basically live it. So he says when you say V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha, you have to actually have in mind to have a Havas Hashem. Also not to have Eid Sheker. And he also says one point, that the whole thing that it's an Aveira to read Shema without towels and tefillin, it's only if you have towels and tefillin you choose not to wear it. If you don't have towels and tefillin, or you're not feeling well and you can't wear tefillin, obviously, then it's a Oines Chachon Pat.